Before I start this video, I feel like I should just say this. Easy, as in the queer content creator who typically films in Atlanta, Georgia. Easy, come here. The video you made about fat people. I was mentally tortured as a child, emotionally abused, put on 12 different diets throughout my adolescence. None of them worked. And you know what did work? Medication. I had a hormonal imbalance that prevented me from losing weight. Also gave me depression and made it hard for me to digest food. Am I lazy? Am I inhumane then? It's all fun and games to joke about big black women. You specifically targeted plus size black women, queer women at that, dating women. The way that we treat plus size figures in this world is absolutely grotesque, considering the fact that most women who look like me or bigger raised y'all, took care of y'all, or was the host of the house y'all would all meet with your cousins at. The auntie with the elbow fat made good mac and cheese, right? That's in our culture, right? But y'all sit here and joke and play fun and games about it. It's like y'all wouldn't say that to their faces. It's only funny because you don't experience it. It's only funny because you haven't been dehumanized in that way. You should be sick of yourself. Shame. I cast shame on you. Everybody's deserving of love and consideration within this world despite what they look like. You're literally queer. You're literally like a lesbian. What is happening right now? Are you good? Hi, I'm Nikki, and that's as much of an intro as I'm going to do. At this point, I'm just gonna consider this a series. This is the third video I've done. If y'all like it, please sound off in the comments. This is my merch. Today we're going to be talking about a very, very sore topic. That is Generation X. The failure of a generation. I'm not gonna say the entirety of them were a failure. I will say a great proportion of my generation is not in contact with their parents. Okay. Me personally, both of my parents were born in the 70s. One set of grandparents was born in the 60s. One of my grandparents was born in the 40s. So I am the middle child, Capricorn, autistic, gay. So, I mean, I'm really just going to get into it. I don't really want to go too deep into my personal story because, again, this is something that is more so helpful towards y'all. When I was younger, my mother put me on about 12 different diets. I cannot really tell you the exact names because I'm pretty sure some of them were simply made up. I stopped dieting when I started taking medication because it was not the way I was eating. It was very hard for my mother to mother me because, like, what do you do with a child that doesn't need help? For her, she was a child that needed help. It's a chain of events. It's generational cycles. It wasn't just my experience. I'm the one telling the story, so I can only give you my side. On paper, things are good, but unfortunately, we don't live on paper. We live in the 3D realm. So we also have to account for emotional needs, emotional availability, and the lack thereof. I've also noticed that most of my friends, all except for maybe one, have very similar relationships with their parents in general. I won't say that my relationship with my father is 110%, but it has healed over time. What's up with the generation that raised us, Gen Z? Why were they such emotionally and sometimes physically abusive parents? Many times abusive parents. Why were they such abusive parents? If you want the short answer, massive amount of unprocessed trauma, social gaslighting, plus zero emotional tools. What I'm about to say is not to excuse the actions, it's just to explain it. Gen X was raised in neglect, not an ounce of care, because many of their parents were raised by the silent generation, also known as boomers. We all know about boomers. So they believe that children should be seen, not heard. Obedience equaled love. I mean, we got to think about it. These people grew up in the Great Depression. They grew up in war and all of that. So they really not thinking about emotional needs, but more so survival. Barely that. Some people didn't. Some people didn't do that part either. So there were high rates of physical punishment, emotional neglect, parentification, untreated illness, and countless amounts of substance abuse. I cannot express to you enough How many stories my parents have about them growing up around substance abuse. It's terrifying. They both grew up in the 70s, okay? We all know what Coke did to the 70s. And then we also have to think about the time where there were very little titles because I mean, black wasn't even allowed. You know what I'm saying? There weren't a lot of names for mental illnesses. There wasn't language for trauma or neurodivergence or emotional regulation. I'm not gonna say that wasn't a word. It might have been. I didn't do my research on that part. But just you know what I mean. Even if it was a word, it wasn't a word. Gen X learned early to dissociate from their feelings. That's why they are the least empathetic. I don't know the word. They are the least sympathetic, but like they lack empathy. And control replaces their safety. Control replaces safety, shame replaces guidance. Everything just gets mixed up. I like to think of the Robots movie where they had to build their son. Gen X was raised by the generation that was like, as long as it's put together, I think the kid's okay. But like didn't really pay attention to how the wires were going and kind of put them and I think they also probably got some bootleg parts instead of getting the child what they actually, so it's the parents that we have are very miswired. And this doesn't excuse what they did because again, we all have a responsibility. My generation, some of us are aware, some Gen X is aware. So when we think about Gen X confusing control with love, especially towards children who were neurodivergent, fats, or chronically ill, queer, or gender conforming, okay, emotionally perceptive, or resistant to authoritarian control. For someone like our parent, autonomy feels like a threat. And again, if you are plus size or disabled, anything of the sorts, right, your body becomes something to fix, or your mind becomes something to fix, like a problem. But if you're someone like me and you are not receptive to that, then your refusal to submit will expose untreated wounds. And that's why it can sometimes feel like you're targeted by one parent. Abusive parents often single out a child who sees through the system, who doesn't perform false harmony, whose body refuses to comply, and who becomes the scapegoat. And my body refused to comply. No matter how many diets I went on, I started gaining more and more weight. Now, on the topic of diet culture and anti-blackness and misogyny, and how all of those can come together to make sanctioned abuse. If your parent puts you on 12 diets, that is not concern. It is medicalized control, especially for Black girls. Fatness is framed as moral failure. Pain is dismissed. Chronic illnesses are ignored. Emotional distress is punished instead of supported. So when a parent is emotionally dysregulated, dieting becomes a socially acceptable way to punish, a way to project shame outward, a way to feel successful while harming you. So then the child's eating disorder is caused, not chosen. For me, I did have a falling out with my mother before I left. I had several before we went no contact. But right before, and I'm saying the moment that I got approved for this apartment, I went to the doctors to get checked up for the illness that I already had. I was only on one medication. It was a while. Okay, I was really behind, but I was on one medication. Y'all know I went in there and had low levels of everything. I had been so depressed that year. I had low cortisol, low blood pressure, had low iron, like just all these different things. And come to find out, I had PCOS. Do y'all know the moment I started taking all of that medication plus anxiety medication, my brain rewired to the point where I was like, yo, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm at a job I hate. And I am actively losing my life too, to the point where I wake up and want to cry. I am in a household that makes me feel less and less human every day. Going to a school that I didn't even care about, hanging out with certain crowds that I didn't align with, doing things and finding myself in places that I did not align with. And so it really took that plus the falling out, the very last falling out, and my entire 50-day meditation. If y'all want a video of that, I will 100% show y'all. All this to say, when I moved out, my weight started dropping. I have not been exercising. I have not been eating different than how I have since I started cooking for myself. I've done nothing but get my mind together, rewire it to the places that they were supposed to be in the first place. Many children experience this, right? Many children, whether you're on the spectrum or not, if you grew up in an abusive household and plus size and then you leave that environment, oftentimes you will drop weight. This is crucial because your nervous system was living in I can't say the word. I can. Chronic hypervigilance, emotional threat, and cortisol overload. Now, again, I think I got put on for a little bit of medication for diabetes too. Like, I wasn't all the way there, but like they wanted to get me not closer to back to the cortisol level thing. Like, it really can impact you down to the way that parents cook for their kids can impact their cortisol levels, and their cortisol levels can impact their brains, right? So parents have to be creative in getting the child to either learn about veggies or whatever in a way, just healthier lifestyles. And if you grow up in less fortunate households, you have to find creative ways for the child to still take in nutrients. And also, you have to be active in the child's life. You have to be reading to the child. You have to be engaging with the child. You can't just give them an iPad and put them on a TV and expect them to. No, that was our generation. That's why we're rewiring our brain. So in the case of leaving a toxic environment, your body will exit survival mode. Eventually, it takes a while. It's a long process. So your inflammation will drop and your hormonal regulation will improve. Even your digestion, yes, digestion. I'm gonna just say immune system. Even your immune system will stabilize. So this is like college textbook physiology. It's not coincidence. It's not like once I leave, nothing is a coincidence. First of all, once I left the environment, I just magically no. Like your body really chemically got back into shape after leaving an environment that was harming it. Here's why their abuse does not absolve the parent that they were to us. We are already doing something. You are already doing something that your parents didn't do, which is getting help or doing your research, naming the cycle instead of reenacting it, understanding context without justifying them. Many people who are abused do not do that. Many parents who were abused did not put their child on 12 diets, emotionally terrorize them, target one specific child, refuse accountability, or sink deeper instead of seeking help. The difference is choice. Healing is hard, so is abuse, but they chose the path that protected their ego, not you. You're not crazy and you did not imagine the harm. Your body improving after leaving an abusive environment is the clearest sign that what you were dealing with was severe. There is always going to be an explanation for why someone is abusive, but it is never an excuse. The explanation is for you and for them. It's for the healing process, the rehabilitation process. Okay, we have to understand why things happen so that we do not do them again. So the fact that they were traumatized, the fact that they were abused as well, does not absolve the fact that they were abusive to you. Gen X mothers specifically, but of course, all of Gen X seep into extreme diet culture, anti-fat moralism, misogynoir. The belief that controlling a child's body is love. It's not. Here's why we as Gen Z and higher see it so clearly. We have the language to name trauma. We value consent and boundaries. Not all of us, but most, good majority. We question hierarchy. A lot of us are more neurodivergent affirming because a lot of us are neurodivergent and we don't accept I did my best, because that's not an excuse. It's only a band-aid on top of a bomb wound. So instead of accountability, some, if not most, if not all of the parents double down on gaslighting, narcissism, victimhood, moral superiority. You can still hold compassion for them and who they are without sacrificing clarity on what happened and what they did to you. You are not obligated to reconcile, forgive, understand deeply, or even research deeper. Even the fact that you're even on this video, you're not obligated to do that or make meaning out of your pain for their benefit. Your healing already speaks for itself. Now let's talk about the kids, our generation, or the millennials who were raised by Gen X, who did not see the light and who fell into their shadow. Oldest siblings, ones that are raised fully by one parent, typically the mother, being fully raised by an abusive, dysregulated parent, especially as the eldest, often produces one or two outcomes: the mirror or the shield. The mirror is the child that internalizes the behavior and reenacts it. The shield is the child that overfunctions to protect themselves from the parent, but it collapses later on. So, for any sibling that was fully raised by this parent or that latched onto the abusive parents, for anyone that became the mirror and they're seen as like bad people, whatever, it's not an insult to call them a terrible person. It's a tragedy because it's the reality. When a child has no escape, no counter model, as in no parent, no other parent with them, and is rewarded for compliance, they often survive by becoming aligned with the abuser's logic. That does not excuse the harm that is caused. It explains the mechanism. Diagnoses do not negate responsibility. If your parent, like mine, suffered from PTSD, anxiety, autism, ADHD, bipolar personality disorder, any of the sort, that does not cause financial surveillance, selective enforcement of rules, location tracking, even on adult, prolonged infantilization, body-based control. Those are choices, not symptoms. Mental illness can explain dysregulation, but patterns of power and control are behavioral, not diagnostic. So then the child becomes subjective to coercive control instead of parenting, which is a form of abuse often coined in domestic violence, where the rules apply to one person only, typically like tunneling or targeting, but is tied to resources and framed as care. I put the roof over your head, I buy the clothes, this, and that, so I should be allowed this, or I can do this. No, that's not anxiety. That's not protection. That's ownership behavior. Here's why you may have been singled out. This is important, painful, but it will explain. If you were the child that did not submit, if you were the child with strong pattern recognition, the one whose body did not conform or who did not follow the pattern, or if you mirrored their internalized shame, or if you survived despite their abuse, you will be seen as the problem because you just destabilized their entire scheme. You weren't controlled because you were unsafe. You were controlled because you were uncontrollable. For me, I was plus size. My mother was plus size. She ended up losing the weight in her own way. So for many women with unprocessed trauma in the weight department, weight becomes moralized. And so then thinness becomes proof of recovery instead of recovery. And then the fatness gets projected as shame. So your body existing healthily without their method is a living contradiction to their world view that's threatening. So when I started gaining weight with interaction and then completely dropped all of it the moment that I moved out, my body refuted the coping strategy that was commonly used. A lot of our generation feels like Steven Universe when it comes to rose quartz. Like you're paying for the actions of your father or you're paying for the actions of one of your parents. Even though it's not you, you really just trying to live your own life. This is called trauma displacement. You're not responsible for repairing your parents' nervous systems, regulating their fear, proving safe, or making them feel redeemed. Children are not restitution. The important thing to note is that your clarity increased when you left, when the control ended. You didn't abandon your family. You broke the pattern. I'm someone that's very closed off with my personal life to my family. I have one persona for family, one persona for friends, one persona for relationships. I am not the same person for everyone because I don't think anybody should be. But I put strong boundaries up with my family when it comes to my personal life. And for my mother, she did not like that. But here is classic abusive framework: access, love, control, safety, boundaries, rejection. So when someone equates intimacy with intrusion, boundaries feel like abandonment. So when you say something like, I don't open up to you because you don't respect boundaries, what they're hearing is you're unworthy of access. So instead of reflecting, it's reformed. You're cold, secretive, disrespectful. They love throwing that one out there. This protects them from their accountability. How do you respond? Still have boundaries. It's not defiance. It's never easy navigating adult life, especially after leaving an emotionally or physical abusive household. But just know that you survived. You are not a victim. You are a survivor, and you did it. And you're here, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of us. That was the video. If you are interested in a Just B shirt, the link will be in the description. Y'all see it? I'm so happy. See, it says Just B. Y'all better be out here just being. If you like the video, feel free to comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if you want this to be a series. Let me know your experience. If you want to drop that down in the comments below, let me know anything. The link to my shop will be in the description. I love y'all.